All around the world, there are creatures. Some of these creatures are thought only to exist in stories. However, when a story of an encounter with one of these creatures gets out, it leaves us with more questions than answers. One of these creatures has been spotted all over the world. Though it has many names, it needs only one for people to fear it. Skeptics and those who live under a rock know this name, and at least one of more than a million stories. This creature is the one, the only, definitely not the one or only, Bigfoot. Tonight, we're talking about Ireland's Bigfoot. The Gruagach, something like that. Yeah. Apparently, it translates into giant or ogre, but actually, with quotes, means the hairy one. This handsome gent has a lot of nicknames and a great big nose. But we'll get more into that after these short messages. Are you tired of those darn neighbors? Are they too loud, too nosy, stopping your weekend mayhem? Is it your neighbor Pat, Alex, Michelle, or God forbid Brutus? You don't have to worry any longer. Now, for the low price of $16 or 42,000 euros, you can summon a Sasquatch. Do you worry they're plotting against you? Summon a Sasquatch. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. The Sasquatch ate your enemy. Pull out your phone and call 4. That's 4. And your worries are eaten. Risks and taxes may apply. Hello there, friends, and welcome to the Paranatural Podcast. Ben? Benjamin? Ben, where are you at? Oh shit, that's right. Well, fans and friends and all those critters alike, Ben actually took a trip, and it was near a very well-known abduction site, and I think that might have been what happened to him. So as we speak, Benjamin is probably humping his way through the solar system to make his way back to us. But until then, looks like I'm solo on this this podcast episode. So you're stuck with me, but Ben, Derek says suck it. And yeah, so without further ado, here's the story of the Gruagach. That's what I'm going to call it. It's an Irish Bigfoot. So, within various medieval literature detailing history and folklore throughout Europe, one who looks hard enough won't have to struggle to find references to a hairy, man-like beast. They've also been referred to as orcs, ogres, trolls, woodwoses, and wild men in various documents from England and its surrounding countries. But today we're just talking about Ireland. So Nick Redfern proposed that the Gruagach of Irish lore is a Bigfoot or a similar wild man. The Gruagach, also known as the Gruagach Gelt, or on occasion the Puka, and sometimes even the Tipperary Ossery Wolfman, is a large bipedal ape-like creature that allegedly lives in Ireland. The creature appears in mythology around Ireland and is slightly... Oh, shit, I messed up. And is cited only on a rare occasion, but over the years has been seen all over Northern Ireland and, on occasion, Southern Ireland. Despite this, it gets very little attention as Ireland is a small place, and even though the majority is countryside, most people say there is not enough thick forest or food to support and hide a large ape-like dude. Despite the fact that it supports deer in some places and once even supported large megafauna. Yeah. It has been estimated that the amount of forest covering in Ireland is as little as a mere 1%, which, with County Wicklow home to at least one known alleged Gruagach sighting, having the most forest, and County Meath, not known to have any sightings, having the least. That's kind of self-explanatory. The creature is very similar to other Bigfoot-like creatures, the most well-known example being the North American sasquatch. Though unlike the sasquatch, most sightings of the Gruagach, as well as the woodwoos, describe it to be more human-like. It is normally depicted with a small, not the picture, a huge fucking nose, sometimes described as piggish, a mostly flat face, a protruding brow ridge, and strangely, with no sagittal crest. A sagittal crest being the crest on the skull of certain apes, such as gorilla, which gives their head a cone shape. Though occasionally the crest is there, it is more similar to the Minnesota Iceman than the traditional Bigfoot depiction. It is often compared to a Neanderthal, as the facial features appear similar. However, Neanderthals are believed to have only stood 4 foot tall. That's pretty short. Sightings of this creature are all around Ireland. Almost said Italy. Though mostly centered around Slevianora and Ballybully. So the ape skull was once found in Ireland, and some evidence such as the worship of an Egyptian god and legends of an Egyptian princess in Scotland suggest that the ancient Egyptians got to Ireland at one point. Some theorize a population of baboons / apes or other African and Middle Eastern apes were brought to Ireland and may have a population that somehow has gone undetected. Baboons seem particularly likely to have been transported by the Egyptians, as the god Thoth has been represented by a baboon in the past. It is possible that Bigfoot is some type of spiritual being, with some biblical historians and Christians claiming they are the descendant of the Nephilim giants. Other religious theories say they may be demons, while other less religious but equally spiritual theories suggest shapeshifters or even the ghosts of the Gigantopithecus, Neanderthal, or other creature. The living Gigantopithecus is an often proposed explanation for Sasquatch, and while many say the Gruagach and other more human-like Bigfoots are hominin, meaning in the genus Homo, or Australopithecus, Pithecus. Pat on the back for that one. Some propose they are one and the same as the largest known ape ever to live. An extant population of non-sapient hominin is considered likely by many, with many British and Irish researchers saying this is the most likely explanation. The IBRO proposes a living Neanderthal as an explanation for both the Almas and the Gruagach. Though the Almas, they say, which are less hairy and wear clothing, thank you to them, Welsh researcher Bigfoot Tony once stated he believed they have a soul of some type similar to a human, though specifies his uncertainty. Yeah, so that's pretty much the story behind these handsome gents. Now on to sightings. In January of 2016, a mother and Irish Bigfoot researcher, Maxine Caulfield, was walking her dogs in Slevianora Forest, a place believed by some to be haunted, when her dogs start acting erratically, which had happened on other occasions during her research. It was not until she got home and posted her pictures from the forest online that people noticed a strange figure in it, which her and some others who saw the picture online compared to the Gruagach, which Maxine was looking for at the time. Ghost stories in Slevianora have been told since October 1942 when the U.S. Air Force B-17 Flying Fortress bomber crashed into the mountain in the area, killing 8 of the 10 people in the plane. The photo appears similar to a ghillie suit, though its arm appears to be a branch, which could be the explanation of the creature, or it could be holding a branch, and it could just be a fucking Gruagach Bigfoot guy. So yeah, people like to say that hoaxes are a thing, which they totally are, but for the life of me, I can't imagine why Maxine would lie to us. Yeah, so around 4:30 in the evening on the 14th of July in 2017, a wildlife photographer and her husband went to the Slevianora forest in Northern Ireland. She says it was raining very heavily and they were walking their usual routes when they heard a strange howling noise. They hadn't went far into the forest when her German shepherd started barking at the noise. At that point, the howl sounded quit. Oh, shit. At that point, the howl sounded quite close, but they couldn't find the source of the noise. A few seconds later, the noise had stopped, then started again. This happened 4 times. She said she had heard the noise before in the same area of the forest, but she was alone with the dogs, so she doubted herself a bit. She told researcher Deborah Hatswell she intended on going back there without the dogs to see if she'd still hear it. She reported to the same researcher that the 17th of July 2017, she had returned to the area with her phone, but she didn't hear anything. She brought her partner's smaller dog, Barney, with her, and he stopped randomly near where she said she found a double X made out of log tree trunks. It is worth noting that in other parts of the world, field researchers also report this in alleged Bigfoot habitats. The dog just stood there sniffing the wind with his ears up and one paw off the ground, as if he had smelt something. Later on, her partner and her both got a feeling of being watched after the dog started doing the same thing again. She also says that while it may be unrelated, she lost the dog's ball in the area and looked for it for a long time without finding it. And she went back the next day to find it laying in the middle of the trail. She says she will go back until she has something that proves her story. However, no more information has been given. So, yeah, here's another story. In 1997, two men claim they were in the allegedly haunted Ballybully forest when they heard what they called a loud flapping sound. They thought nothing of it and continued walking until they heard stranger noises yet, such as a woman moaning in pain. They were horrified to find a group of trees thickly smeared with blood. As they ran off, one of the men claims he saw four dark humanoid figures standing behind them, but not chasing them, where only a few seconds earlier, nothing had been there. Other reports from the area describe druid rituals where animals are burned to death, and campfires and teepee-shaped tree structures can be found in the forest, though the tree structures are quite common. So that's pretty neat. Silhouetted Gruagach Bigfoot, guys. Here's another good one that I know you guys are just gonna love. Ben, you care to weigh in? Ah, I hear you, and you might think this is a hoax, being that you're a fucking Bigfoot enthusiast and all that, but I'm telling the story, so you can keep your mouth shut. All right, thanks. A 63-year-old woman who was working as a pet sitter and her husband were walking some local dogs in Ballybully. They approached a small patch of dead trees one day, and they claimed that they saw what they thought was a human crouched down into the bushes. Agitating the dogs, the creature raised its head, showing that it was not, in fact, human. The woman says her husband approached the thing, who growled at them when he came too close. She told him to step back, and he thought it was an escaped chimpanzee at the time until he got within 15 feet of it and the tall figure stood up on its hind legs. They noticed the large creature was carrying an also large sack. So it was a male Bigfoot, guys. The creature smashed its stick against a tree, then ran off at high speeds. The whole thing lasted all of 4 minutes. She described the creature as having a chimpanzee-like face, but with a broader, giant fucking nose. It was covered in dark brown, blackish fur and was 8 feet tall. Later that year, a man claimed to have seen an ape-like creature using improvised eating utensils. They're smart. Got to keep that in mind when we go Bigfoot researching. The report came 1 week after a man claimed to have seen a similar creature in Suffolk, England. Ben, anything to say about that one? Right. My thoughts exactly. How the fuck would they mistake an 8-foot tall, blackish brown, broad faced motherfucker for a chimp? Weird. Now, here's another story. Yeah. A man claimed that in December of 2015, he had seen a large, upright, hairy creature wandering through the Sparran Mountains. Though he saw it at a distance, he says it was taller than a 6-foot man and that he didn't have a gun, so he left. My hat's off to that guy. He's not the kind of guy who researches the bump in the night kind of shit. Proud of him. Yeah. While he was leaving, he says he noticed some hunters using a map, which he noted was somewhat strange since most hunters knew the area quite well. Another man reported to British and Irish Bigfoot researcher Deborah Hatswell that in 1998 he was on the Lurgan Road in Drumore at night when he saw a 7-foot tall humanoid creature blocking the road. He says that he stopped the car and saw the creature's red eyes illuminated by his headlights. In 2017, a man was in a mostly human inhabited part of Gruagach in County Armagh when a hairy ape-like creature stared at him. He said, and I quote, "I would like to report an experience that happened to me just last month," which would be August 2017. "I was unsure about coming forward, and to be honest, I still am. I was in Brecig, which borders a road and is near human habitation in Co Armagh. I was out as I like to walk, and I was exploring an old stomping ground of many years of my youth. I spent a lot of time down there as a lad with my friends or out on my own for hours on end. Back then, the area was different, as this is now a nature reserve and is used by dog walkers on a loop walk trail. You can leave the trails and paths if you want to, but I doubt anybody does. There are 7 peat rompers, raised wooden boards, and I had walked 3 or 4 of them at least that day already, so I'd been out for quite some time at this point. As I walked the loop that was the farthest from the road, I was walking close to the edge of the adjoining field, and when I passed a certain spot, I heard the unusual cry of an animal. It wasn't something I could identify, but whatever it was, it sounded as if it was in distress. I walk very quietly, by the way, so I don't think I made a noise on approaching that area or spooked anything. I know, even with all my walking, I see very little of the known wildlife myself, so to make a sound of distress is not something an animal would do unless, well, it was in distress. I don't think my feet. There's a typo in this, fellas and lady fellas. I don't think my feet are that used to treading softly, and not giving the game away would worry anything, to be honest. So I stood and watched, keeping as quiet as I could, just listening to see if I could see where the sound was coming from or its source. I could pinpoint the general area, but not the actual source of the noise. I kept looking around, trying to see what it was, but I couldn't identify anything. And as I walked on my way, I was still looking back to try to see any movement in the grass or shrubs. I did notice a lot of trees, and they had been drilled and a PVC capsule inserted. This, I presume, was to kill the tree and its roots. Why? I don't know. As I dug one out with a knife to examine it, these capsules were in a lot of trees around me as I passed by. There were trees with capsules everywhere. Farther south from the alleged sighting, 8 British soldiers claimed to have seen 4 gray aliens crossing the road, and further south from there yet, a man claimed to have had multiple encounters with a strange reptilian creature similar to the gray aliens in head size and shape, but much taller, much more muscular, also green, and having a tail. That doesn't sound a whole lot like a alien, but yeah, so that's my stories on the Gruagach If anyone wants to correct my pronunciation or pronunciation, or if you just want to tell me this was a load of bullwad, then well, don't tell me that because it'll hurt my feelings, and I'm a sensitive fella, guys and gals. But yeah, so well, Ben is finding his way back to the solar system, and or if he's already here and past Uranus. um, I'm assuming he should be back by next week with alien technology the way it is. And we'll know that he has become a softie for aliens if he starts referring to them as extraterrestrial beings or friends, I guess. So keep an eye out. He might have a probe deep in the old buttocks. And yeah, so Ben, anything to add? Yep, I have to be with I gotta go with Ben. Good night, everyone. Thanks for listening. And all the things that Ben says usually. If you want to check out our stuff, do it. We got a website that's paranaturalpodcast.com, not .org. We got a Patreon, which is gonna have some wicked stuff on it. I just got back from my vacation. I'll talk about that a little bit. So we went to a bunch of different haunted locations. The first one was kind of a letdown. It's Centralia, Pennsylvania, where Silent Hill is supposed to be based out of. There is literally nothing left. Apparently, the first year of the coronavirus, it had too many people exploring, so the governor fucked that up for us. Even the graffiti highway, like one of the most famous things, is just covered in dirt mounds. I have videos of that, which it's still cool, and there's a lot of awesome things to see. We got to see smoke coming out of the ground. That'll be on the Patreon, maybe on the Facebook. So it's still cool to see, but a bit of a letdown when you expect a whole abandoned town the way they describe it online. Then we went to a haunted campground somewhere in the George Washington National Forest. That had the creepiest things, definitely. When we first got there, we were setting up the hammocks, and it was probably 11 to 11:30 at night, and we had a rental car, which we were pretty far away from. I want to say like 150 to 175 feet, maybe 200 feet, and it was a dead zone. No cell service for like 10 miles around the area. So that's just a little explanation for why I can't explain what happened next. The car, which I was hooked up to on Bluetooth, but usually Bluetooth doesn't reach that far. And even with Bluetooth, it usually speaks like in a feminine voice for like mapping and stuff. This was definitely a male voice. It said 5 words and then maybe 6 and shut up. Did not make a peep after that. And I looked and it said I wasn't connected on my phone. So that's weird. Then later that night, we go down to the pond that's on the property to go fishing. And this one's really hard to explain. As we're sitting there, over top of our heads, there's this weird sound. It almost sounded like when Pac-Man dies in the old arcade game, like wee 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 wee. Flew right over our heads, and I like to think I'm an avid outdoorsman, but I've never heard anything like that in nature before. So if any of you have an idea of what that could be, please share. Please tell me. There was no one out there. There was no lights. It was a dead zone in more ways than one. And then, oh, I forgot our first stop. The wayside. Nothing really creepy happened there. It's a really cool place. If anyone's in the area and ever wants to go there, it's a great place. Good beer at the bar. It's very, very neat, very historic. They've kept up on it very well. And one of the tables in the tavern is a well that you get to see all the way down. So that's sweet. Then the last place we went to was an abandoned theme park, which I got a lot of video on that, got a lot of pictures. Really, really cool experience. We got to learn the history of it. And that for sure is going on the Patreon. Plus, I'm going to talk more about it when I can get Justin back on here. And it was a wonderful experience. I met a little friend named Dudley. He was one of those ventriloquism dummies, and well, he didn't talk, so I guess he wasn't too spooky, but he was a good dude. There's a lot of history there, but like I said, I want to get Justin on here before I get too far into it. And if you're listening, join the Patreon. There's going to be some wicked stuff on there. Yeah, so with that, good night. I love you all. I'm sure Ben loves you while he's getting anally probed. And that's that. See ya, ladies and folks. Sweet nightmares. Dream of my face, or at least my voice if you don't know what my face looks like. Love you. Shit. I don't know how to hang up. Oh. Ah. There it is. All right. Love you again.